Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Savvy Sales Lady. I'm Christine Harrington from the USA, sales coach and trainer. And we have the premier sales coach and trainer from the UK, Simon White. And today we're talking about telesales. Now, Simon, I have a question. This may be a UK thing versus USA, but we call them cold calling here. So is telesales different than cold calling?
Yeah, so cold calling, telesales or telemarketing, all kind of mean the same thing over here. Telesales used to mean selling over the phone, as in selling a product over the phone there and then. And telemarketing was more about awareness and appointment setting. And cold calling is phoning somebody unsolicited, but it all gets mixed into the same terminology now. It means the same thing essentially.
Okay, we're on the same page.
Yes.
So I want to start out, everyone, going through some of the strategies, and you won't be able to see this because it's on my screen, but I'll make sure that I put it on the video and I'll put it in the description area. The elements of a phone call. Now, these are the strategies, Simon, that I teach on cold calling, or really basically anytime you're going to pick up the phone and call someone. The elements of a phone call, and it's what is the strategy of your phone call?
Yeah.
That is so important.
Yeah.
What is the expected outcome? What do you want to get from this phone call? Do you have a prepared script? And if you don't, you really should use one so you don't find yourself rambling. And then before you pick that phone up, be prepared to do research before making that call. And I'm sure you have some similar strategies, Simon. What can you add as far as the strategies that you train and coach on?
Yeah, so very similar process to yourself. Yeah, what does success look like? And actually quantify that. How many calls am I going to make? What are my KPIs? How many calls? How many decision-making conversations do I want? What would be the perfect outcome in terms of how many leads or appointments am I going to make that day, that calling session, that week, whatever it is. Anticipate what objections or hurdles you're going to come across. That, think it through. Practice, do some role play with a colleague before picking up the phone. Don't just go in there cold. It's a really good point that you make about doing pre-call research as well. That falls into a couple of different areas. One of them, of course, is perhaps before you call a particular company up, you might choose to look on their website or to research that person on LinkedIn before you phone them. You might do that every time. You might only do that with certain categories or in certain sectors. It depends on the client. But one thing that everyone should do in terms of pre-call research is to really understand their audience and that buyer. A financial director has a very different set of requirements to maybe a marketing director does. To understand what is going to excite them, what is on their list of priorities. And when you are calling that company, if maybe you might speak to a managing director or financial director or a marketing director or a sales director, plan out in your script or your call guide or your structure how you're going to tackle those different people depending on who you're speaking with. So yeah, pre-call research is a big thing. Depends on your sector and your audience how much you do, but do think about those different personas that you're targeting.
You touched on something that practice, okay? I always tell people to pick up this and record what they're going to say. Exactly. Record what they're going to say and on their smartphone and then play it back. It's important to hear how the other person on the other end of that phone hears you as well, even if it's just a practice of voice message that you may leave because you won't be able to get a hold of someone. Be sure to practice by recording yourself to hear how you sound. And you'll pick up a lot of information on how you should redo it. Matter of fact, Simon, I teach that they should practice recording at least 25, 30 times, play it back before they pick up that phone. That's part of the preparation in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good advice. And I would say to break down the different elements of the phone call and practice each of those rather than practicing the whole game.
Yes,
practice each bit. So, in a sports analogy, practice the kick, practice the throw, practice each element. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. So they've got to work with coaches.
You are so good with these sayings.
It's not mine. I don't know where it came from, but
so say that again.
Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Yeah, it's a lovely. I love that. But that's why it's important for people to work with trainers and coaches like us. Learn how to do it right the first time and then practice it. But if you learn it incorrectly and you just keep repeating those mistakes over and over again, you're just going to be really good at doing it the wrong way. So yeah, in terms of practice each element of that. So in a cold call, it might be, having an initial gatekeeper conversation, getting past the gatekeeper. It might be your intro. It might be overcoming an objection. It might, whatever those different elements are for that person. And practice those. And that's, and that's how we do it. And if you've got multiple salespeople, get everybody to do that and pick the best version of everything. So the best opener, the best close, etc., and save them on your central server or in the cloud or wherever. So when you do onboard new salespeople, you can say, okay, this is how we structure a call, and listen to our best salespeople structure each part of it, rather than just someone saying, here's a phone, crack on, actually, this is our template for success, so yeah, I definitely take that and keep a library of all these great calls.
I have a tip that I'm going to share, and every time I teach this, everybody thinks I've just lost my mind when I teach this, but it works. It doesn't work every time, but it works enough times. And that is using your tone in order to break through, especially if you're cold calling, okay? So when you're picking up the phone and you're cold calling, you have 4 seconds to be able to connect with that buyer on the other side, just 4 seconds. And you can disrupt his or her brain pattern of, well, this is just another salesperson calling, by changing the tone in your voice. And I'm going to walk you through this, Simon. So if I cold call, I'll say, hi, Simon. This is Christine Harrington with the Savvy Sales Lady. How's it going? So what I'm saying is, I'll say it again. Hi, Simon. And I'm going to go, hi, Simon. My tone goes down. This is Christine Harrington, like a question mark. Remember me with the Savvy Sales Lady? Remember me? How's it going? So many times, not every time, people have reported back to me, and I've experienced the same thing. And I'll tell you a funny story. I've had people say to me, Christine Harrington. Oh, yes, Christine. How are you? It's been a long time. And I have never talked to them before, Simon, because when you change the inflection of your tone, saying your name and saying the company you're with as a question mark, remember me, it's a brain disruptor. And so they're sitting there thinking, how do I know her?
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. So you said there just triggered something. I thought I might mention it straight off. Not every company name is easy to use over the phone when cold calling. Certain company names, especially if it's just some initials or something, it's very difficult because you say those initials out loud, and the person on the other end goes, sorry, who's that? What's that? And it kind of, years ago, I used to manage a telemarketing company. So doing, company making appointments for other businesses. And we had 2 clients who both designed websites. they had very different company names. The only variable was the company name. One had so many more appointments generated for them than the other. It was just a company. I won't tell you the company names, but the company names were so different. But one of them, it was easy to pronounce over the phone. People got it. They understood it straight away. The other one was a bit, sorry, what was that? And it was amazing. One renewed their contract, the other one didn't. It was such a difference, yeah. So just to pick up on that one thing you said, but tonality is amazing. What you said, the way it's almost like I don't know if you're into Star Wars or not, but it's a bit like a Jedi mind trick. The way you just change the word, the tone there makes such a difference. Yeah.
There's
really
86 different tones you can use in a sales conversation.
Oh, wow. I didn't know. That's a good one. Yeah,
now,
that's a good one.
I'll say, I don't think I use 86 tones in a sales conversation, but it is amazing how much tone can affect your sales conversation, especially over the phone, because they don't know you, right? And they're trying to decide through, and I've had so many clients tell me, well, I don't want to disturb them. I don't want to disrupt their day. Cold calling does do that, but there isn't a business owner I haven't talked to that doesn't expect to get cold calls during the day. I mean, it's a part of doing business. They know it's going to happen. So stand out from the rest by differentiating yourself from the type of tone that you use when you first introduce yourself. So, another tip would be, if you want people to listen intently, okay, obviously we know this, you have to lower the tone of your voice. So when you want people to lean in, whether face-to-face or over the phone, you're going to lower your tone of your voice, and you start to emulate the person sitting across from you. If they become loud and they talk with their hands, it's okay for you to be a little louder and more expressive too. That's mirroring. But you can, and I've had people say to me, well, that doesn't work because they don't see me. It's just like a study that was done back in the 80s about smiling. If you smile when you're making a phone call, it is projected through that phone, because why? It enhances your tone when you smile.
Absolutely. A smile is the shortest distance between two people.
There you go again.
I do say that on my courses. I do say that. I always say it makes me cringe when I say it. It sounds such a tree-hugging thing to say, but absolutely, yeah. And it's interesting what you were saying about people worried about interrupting prospects on the phone and stuff. We're only born with two fears. As a baby, you only have two fears: being dropped and loud noises. Everything else we learn.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so in terms of fear, a lot of it obviously it comes from our upbringing. It comes from our parents. What do our parents tell us? They tell us not to talk to strangers, which is exactly what we do in sales. We talk to strangers every single day. Don't interrupt busy people. What do we do in sales? We interrupt busy people. We're taught about the fear of rejection. Whether you're dating or whether you're selling, we all don't like the fear of rejection. But what do we do in sales? Every single day, we expose ourselves to potential rejection. If you're going to get on the phone all day long and make 50 cold calls or something, 40 odd of those are going to be rejections of some degree. So yeah, we're putting ourselves out there all the time. But it's interesting about those two fears, loud noises and being dropped. They're the only two things we're born with.
What do you suggest salespeople do that do have call reluctance? I mean, I've had salespeople come to me. They really have huge call reluctance. I normally find that this happens after they have had a ton of cold calls that they've done. They've decided that it doesn't work. So they haven't done it for a couple of months, but the boss is telling them they've got to start doing it again. And all of a sudden they have this fear of getting back on that phone because what they're doing is expecting the same results.
Yeah, yeah.
What are your tips for getting through call reluctance?
Well, I think firstly, we need to train them to make sure that they are comfortable and confident in the different techniques. So they do know how to get past a gatekeeper. They do know how to engage the decision maker. They know the kinds of questions to ask. They know how to confidently deal with an objection. So if we can give them those things, that'll help. I think what I do with my clients is help them to understand what is going to be the likely success rate. They're not 100% of the who are going to say yes. Most people will say no. So I get them to count how many no's they get. If they can work out how many no's they need to get a yes, that can be motivational. If we can set them a target of making X amount of phone calls a day, I always get them to ski downwards, ski down the hill. If they've got to make 20 phone calls, make number 20th, then 19, then 18, and actually count downwards. Don't start at 1 and go, oh, that's my first call. I'll make phone call number 2 now. It's an uphill struggle, but start at the end and work your way backwards. There are mainly only four outcomes to a cold call. If you think about it, someone can say yes to you, someone can say no to you, and they're equally valid. I'm quite happy with a no, so it can be a yes, it could be a no. It might be that they're not the right person, and then therefore you can ask for an introduction or a referral to whoever is the right person. Or they might say, now's not the right time. Can you call me back in 3 months, 6 months, or whatever? You have to qualify whether that's a fob off or it's a genuine request. So you dig a little bit deeper, but they're the only four things that are going to happen. So once you know that, then you can that kind of helps as well. So technique, understanding the numbers. I would also, when I cold call, I keep a little tally chart. I record the successes or all the efforts that I'm putting in. So I do a tally chart. It's always the same thing. How many calls I've made, how many decision makers I've spoken to, how many voicemails I've left, how many emails I've sent, how many emails I've received back, and how many opportunities I've generated. And I just keep a little tally chart of that, and I do it for every single day of the month. And I can compare this month to last month, and that really helps as well. So then you start to understand how many calls you have to make to get hold of a decision maker. That might be 5 calls or 10 calls or whatever it is, and that helps motivate as well. I used to work for my first boss. I only saw him do this a couple of times, but our office was in this quaint little English country village near a church, little country, little church. And I saw him take a couple of people who were struggling with call reluctance. He'd take them up to the churchyard and say, right, have a look around the churchyard. How many people died from being told no? and that was just his way,
Yeah.
and yeah.
I like that.
Reluctance, I think at some point you have to pick up the phone, but if they know the techniques, they've practiced, they've done some role play. I also, if they are really shy as well, and you might, some people are quite introvert, if they are shy, let them do some cold calls from a separate room. Maybe, just block out the boardroom for a couple of hours and let them do some cold calls there so they can get their confidence up without all their colleagues listening in on the call as well. But at some point they have to pick up the phone.
Well, I want to share some statistics, Simon, on cold calling, because I always think that people have more expectation than being realistic about cold calling or telesales period. So I'd like to run through some statistics, okay?
Yeah.
And I'll post this in the description below with the sources for everyone so they can see it. But here's one, Simon. 69% of buyers report that they accepted one or more cold calls in 2019. 69%, that's high. 80% of buyers say they have accepted meetings with salespeople after a series of contacts, beginning with sales cold calls. And about 51% of company owners say that they would rather hear from sales reps via the phone compared to emails, faxes, drop-in visits, and other media, according to phone call statistics. So, oh, here's one that's good. The average successful cold call lasts 5.5 minutes compared to 3 and 14 minutes for unsuccessful calls, and includes an uninterrupted sales pitch of 37 seconds, about 50% longer than average.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
those are all real good statistics to consider before you pick up that phone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're fantastic statistics, and I think a lot of that is it's measuring what you're doing, measuring success. Something that most people don't measure, you know, they measure how many calls people make. They might measure talk time as one of your statistics there, but something that I never see measured, and I think it is so important, is how long somebody waits for somebody to answer the phone before they put the phone down. So so with call reluctance, if you've got somebody who's reluctant to make the phone call, they don't want anybody to answer the phone, so they'll pick up the phone,
got it.
they'll dial, and they'll wait about 10 seconds and go, oh, they weren't there. Whew, that's one done. Whereas actually, I've timed this for myself, and in the UK, and it might be different in the US. I leave that phone for 30 seconds before I hang up.
You don't leave a voice message?
Oh, I might leave a voicemail, but I leave 30 seconds. So
okay.
Whether it's the company not answering or if they
got it.
But yeah, if no one answers, I will leave it at least 30 seconds before I say that person's not there. It's amazing how many people don't pick up the phone until 20 seconds in. But I see this a lot with inexperienced salespeople or people who are reluctant to do cold calls. They just don't leave the phone long enough before they give up. They'll leave it 10 seconds, 12 seconds, 15 seconds, put it down with a sense of relief that, oh, I didn't have to speak to anybody. 30 seconds.
And then they mark it off as...
Yeah, that's it. Oh, how many calls did you do today? Oh, I did 50 calls today. I didn't give anyone a chance to answer, but I did 50 calls. Which leads me on a little bit actually to CRM and the importance of having your data in a CRM. I don't know how many telemarketing campaigns I have run over the last nearly 25 years. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of campaigns for lots of different companies in that time. And if there was one reason the campaign would fail, it would be down to the data. It would be that the client, when we used to run a telemarketing company, it would be the client had supplied some really bad data. Maybe it didn't have the right names, or it wasn't in the right sectors, or they weren't the right size of companies. There is no excuse for it now. You can buy some brilliant data. Data that, if it's construction companies, it might tell you what projects they're working on. It might come with mobile phone numbers. It might, if you're selling software, you might be able to buy data telling you what IT platform they're currently using or how many IT users they have. Yeah, there is some amazingly sophisticated data out there, and having that in a good CRM system where you can put your notes in, schedule a call back, segment the data. It makes such a difference. Excel is not a CRM system. Yeah, having it in a CRM system makes such a bit. And there's loads of them out there. They're all, some are better than others, but anything is better than nothing. But buying good quality data makes a difference. Certainly during this whole lockdown thing that we've all been experiencing, the need of having good data that comes with mobile phone numbers, that has made a big difference. Whether it's existing or lapsed customers that you need to phone from an account management point of view, or you're trying to reignite people that used to work with you, or whether it's cold calling. If you've got a mobile phone number, it's going to be, people are working from home. That's a lot easier than trying to navigate a receptionist who might also be working from home, who doesn't have the ability to transfer the call and all that kind of stuff. So good CRM coupled with really good data. Never go halves on data. Always buy the best you can. Now, that's not to say that if you've got some old data and the names aren't right, it doesn't mean you can't research the right names, but it slows you down. If you can buy it already, that's always going to be more cost effective.
Absolutely, absolutely. Simon, let's talk about what is the expected outcome of the call, because a lot of people, especially on cold calling, they're trying to sell over the phone instead of book the appointment to have that conversation. And when you're selling, all you're doing is telling. And that is not what sales is all about, as we've talked about on other videos. But it's so important before you pick up that phone that you decide what the desired outcome is, whether it's a follow-up call, whether it's a cold call, or anywhere in that sales process that you're in, what is the expected outcome?
Absolutely. Sell the appointment. That's what but equally, you've got to qualify it. It's not just going to see anybody for the sake of it. I want an appointment, and I want that appointment with a decision maker, and they've got to be this job title or job role. It's got to be in a company of this size. They've got to have this pain. You've got to understand what level of qualification you want. But as you said, one of your stats there, a successful cold call is 5.5 minutes. If you're on the phone for 10 minutes, then you're probably telling them too much stuff and possibly removing the need, in their eyes, they're actually getting together, because they might say at the end of a 10-minute call, well, you've given me a lot to think about, let me get back in touch with you, and then it's gone. So yeah, I absolutely, if it's an appointment, have that as your objective and don't deviate. Have the end in mind all the way through. It might not be an appointment. It might be a cold call to get somebody to register for an event or whatever it is. But whatever it is, have that as your goal. Yeah, don't try and sell over the phone unless you are indeed selling something over the phone. But in business to business, most of the time it's going to be an appointment you're looking for. And that appointment might be a physical appointment, but it could be a Teams meeting or a Zooms meeting or whatever it is.
So let me ask you this, Simon. Do you use scripts?
I will plot out certain elements of the call. So in terms of the introduction, what I say to the gatekeeper is always the same. I've got a 3-step process for that, so that is always the same. What I say on my opener, my key questions, I plot it out rather than it being what you'd call a script, but I plot out the different parts. And I will have it on my desk. On that first day of doing cold call, it'll be right in front of me. And on the second desk, the second day it'll be on the side. But it'll always be there as a bit of a comfort blanket if I need it. But once I've practiced it, I don't necessarily read it, but it's just then. It has keywords highlighted as well that might be useful as a kind of mind map to jog my memory as I'm going through. But I don't script it in that sense.
Okay, I'm big on scripts, mostly because people that do have call reluctance, the script becomes gives them competency that they may not have or feel comfortable with yet. Once you practice the script, you know the script, you can say the script in your sleep. And I'm only talking about, in a voicemail message, it may be 5 or 6 sentences, that's it. If it's cold calling and the person answers the phone, it'll be maybe the first 30 seconds of that call, and then you can expand by having a sales conversation to book that appointment. But one of the things that I have noticed that helped my clients using scripts is it kept them from rambling and going off on these tangents. that they didn't need to go off on. And of course, once you know the script so well that you can say it in your sleep, you'll find that all of a sudden you'll start, your personality will start coming through that script, is what I was trying to say. And that's important as well, because then you don't sound like a robot saying a script.
Yeah, I was working with an insurance company. I know insurance is your background. I'm working with an insurance company last year, and they have a very rigid script because legally they have to say certain
Yes.
things. And it was a couple of sides of A4, and they had to say that there was whole sentences they had to read out word for word. So it was very hard for them to put in any additional personality. Well, they could, but you know what I mean. It was kind of quite rigid. And one of the things I said to them, and because there's a lot of salespeople are reluctant to use scripts because I'm not a robot. But every film, every TV show that we ever see, whether that film makes us laugh or cry or get excited, at some point it started off written down in a script. When The Rock, you think it's an action film, and it was a script. When it was that romantic comedy where you cried at the end, it was a script. It started out, and it was the practice and practice and practice that brought it to life off the page. And that's what salespeople often don't do. And if you want to train to be a doctor, you might be training for 6, 7, 8 years to be a doctor. If you want to be a salesperson, they give you a laptop, and now you're a salesperson.
Yeah.
And maybe as sales professionals, there needs to be more practice and more dedication to learning the science and the art of it.
Well, very good points. And in my YouTube videos, training YouTube videos that I make for my YouTube channel, but the ones that I make for clients as well, I use a script, Simon.
Yeah.
I just don't talk off the cuff. I write out the script. I'll rewrite it maybe 8 or 9 times before I'm finally pleased with it. And then it goes on a teleprompter, and then I use the teleprompter in the script to film. So it is important to keep you on track and to stop you from rambling. Now, in our videos, we're collaborating. So everybody, I'm not using a script. But if I was going to train you through video series that I produce for clients, I'm going to use a script.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, we have about 5 more minutes left, Simon. Last words of encouragement that you can give, or tips.
Well, I have like you at the beginning, you had a list that you went through. When I sometimes clients will pay me to actually help them set up telesales campaigns internal. So I'm not there training them. I'm actually there to help them set it up. So that's something that I do, because it's something I've done for 20 or nearly 25 years. And
business owners, did you hear that?
Yes. So here's
can help you.
So here's a list of the things we would cover off in a telesales briefing. Whether you're briefing an external agency to do the calls for you, or whether you're setting up internally, here are the things we go through. So very similar to your list. The objectives. What does success look like? Who's your target audience, and where are we getting that list, that data from? What's your proposition or your elevator pitch? Features, advantages, benefits, business outcomes, that side of things. Who are your main competitors? What makes you different? So understanding, so if someone says they're currently working with ABC Limited, understand who are ABC. Are they bigger than you? Are they smaller than you? Are they local? Are they whatever? Key questions to ask in terms of qualifying, but also in terms of keeping the conversation going or getting the conversation going. Likely objections. What marketing support materials do you have to send them if you feel that is the best next step? is it a one-page PDF? Is it a 30-second video? You can send them whatever that is. And if you are making appointments for yourself, or especially as well, if you're making appointments for somebody else, what are you doing in terms of diary management? Can you see that other person's diary? Do you know when they're free? Do you know, do you have your diary ready? And do you know how long it's going to take to drive there or whatever? So they're on a basic level, they're the things I cover off. And I will say this as the last thing. In sales training, in sales, in telesales, we all use the term appointment. I am setting an appointment. How many appointments did you make last week? How many appointments? We call them appointments, but never use the term appointment. This is, I don't know if it's in the US as well, but in the UK, never say to the prospect that you want to arrange an appointment. Appointments are bad things. You have an appointment with the doctor, the dentist, the divorce lawyer. They're appointments. When you're talking to a prospect, it's a meeting, it's a discovery, it's a demo, it's a chat, it's a coffee, it's not an appointment. And actually I don't usually use a lot of PowerPoint, but I do have this on a PowerPoint slide. And when I've got the word appointment, I've actually got a doctor putting on a rubber glove. That's an appointment. Okay, so never use the term appointment. It is anything but an appointment.
I like that, Simon. All right. USA, no more appointments. Meetings. They're down in the southern states of the United States, Simon. Here's what they call it: visits.
Yeah.
And we're getting together for a visit. Or I had an insurance agency in Iowa. I still talk to them today. I have insurance agents that I still talk to today, and I've known them for, 20 some years. And Rick Taylor in Iowa, Red Oak, Iowa, he'd always say, "Now, Christine, when are you coming for a visit again?"
Yeah. I don't think we use that term really, visits, over here. Yeah. But internally it's an appointment, externally it's discovery, or it's coffee or whatever.
Yeah. So there's a little term, US term.
Yeah.
All right. You guys, we're here to help you any way that we can. And we really do want to ask you to like, and not only that, but share this video with your coworkers, with your boss, with other people that you think that could use this type of free training, guys. That's what it is, free training and coaching. And we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you as our followers. And I will list all the information below this video on how to follow Simon. He's the guy to follow. So, Simon, we'll just end by saying, just remember, sales is a journey, not a quick trip around the block. We'll see you guys on the next sales and coaching video from Simon and Christine. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.